in person if anyone wishes to speak a second time, and then I'll go back to Zoom again. So, oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. You're keeping me straight here with Robert's rules. We have to vote on the motion. So all in favor of not going to the hearing? All in favor of going to the hearing? Okay, that's a trick motion. All right, so would anyone here like to speak? Anyone? Please, state your name and address, please.
Chris Garrity, for the record, 92 North Main Street. First, I want to say thank you. The budget is probably the best it's looked ever. Nice work. Everybody else, I like the color coding, especially on the capital plan, which you know near and dear to my heart. But besides all of that, one of my biggest concerns is the mill rate.
I'm sorry,
The mill rate. The mill rate is significantly higher than any of our neighboring towns. Salisbury has an 11 mill. Sharon is 14.25. Cornwall's like 14.4. And the concern is that we, from a budgeting point of view, seem to institutionalize our lines. And what I would urge you to do is to really look at these lines and say, you know, how do we actually budget so that we budget tightly? And my concern is that it trickles down to what people want to have as affordable homes. If you're paying $1,000 more in taxes, for a lot of people, maybe that's not a lot, but for people on the margins that we're trying to keep here in town, it is something. And in this great days of real estate where everybody's booming and everybody's happy, we've had 3 foreclosures here in town. 2 are people who are on the margins. So I really would like you guys to dig down and see what you can do about not only holding the mill rate, but maybe even bringing it down a little bit if we can. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come up.
Sort of piggyback on, I'm Debbie DeVoe, I'm the tax collector. To kind of piggyback on what I just heard, the mill rate is high and it does affect people's lives. In that respect, and for other reasons, I think you should cut the second full-time position in the Park and Rec Department. I think it's unnecessary. It's too much money. It's budget. It's not just the salary, which it is this year, but there are lots of extras with it. So that's my recommendation. I will vote against the budget if it stays in. That's just my personal vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, I'm Marty Lindenmeyer, 51 Elizabeth Street. Again, I'd like to just echo how well prepared this budget preparation is, and I know how hard you guys have worked at, having worked with you before. But just for clarity, on the second page of the pie chart, which was really well done, just had a question, maybe it would benefit everyone, using the word benefit. We have benefits, it's separated from wages and salaries. Wages and salaries and benefits in most fiscal areas are combined together so you can actually see the total cost of both wages and benefits. And I think maybe for clarity's sake for the public, we may consider doing a combination of this so you actually know it's closer to 13.8, close to 14% of the budget, vice to 10% for the wages and salaries and the 3.8 under benefits. It might just be easier as a recommendation to actually combine those into one section, wages, benefits, and salaries. And that way, we'll get a better understanding of the total cost for personnel expense. And the second thing, just looking at the budget, this is maybe a question overall that you can explain. Under, I forget what page it's on, but it's the top of the page is Town Hall. And we get down to grants, section 221, and through. What was the reasoning for adding the ARPA? I thought ARPA in budget was supposed to be a separate entity. And actually, maybe just again, because ARPA it was a whole separate program set up, to help, us, the towns and so on through some of that tough time of COVID and so on. But to actually maybe, I don't know, my first look was, geez, they got so many money for ARPA, but I know that the budget can't include the ARPA money. So I don't understand really what the benefit would have been just to add the ARPA in. I know that our board of selectmen and others have put out what the ARPA grants were, which is wonderful. It really helped a lot of people in the community, but I don't understand in a budgeting sense why the ARPA funds were included. And if that makes any real difference in budgeting, if it just does confuse the subject a little bit. But other than that, I commend you all for your work again, and for all the other departments and commissions and organizations in the town putting together the budget. So I know how tough it is. But thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. I included the ARPA funding to the organizations that received it, organizations that are part of our budget, just for a reference point. It doesn't really have anything to do with the proposed budget. It was just a reference point for the people looking at this information.
It's additional information. The dollars are not in the budget. For clarification purposes.
Mr. Charity, just to that point, I find it actually a little, well, when you look at it, you see, say, as an example, the fire department got $80,000, and you're looking at what their budget is, it's almost, the extrapolation is, oh, well, they got $80,000, why are they asking for an increase? And I think that's where, because the ARPA is completely separate, it should really be separate. And I think that it's just a little confusing. Thank you.
Good feedback. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come up.
Hi, Ellen Gutierrez. I'm here to comment just specifically on the Board of Ed budget, proposed budget. I just want to reiterate that folks of Kent elected the members of the Board of Education into their current positions with the understanding that they would represent us in their decision-making with regards to the school. And to say they've already been very conservative with this year's proposed budget is a massive understatement. Thereby, I'm here to restate my position that I oppose any cuts to the proposed Kent Center School budget.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come up.
Linda Jefferson, 284 Kent Road. I've got a few things to say. At the last BOF meeting, there was a suggestion to move $400,000 from the reserve account to help offset a large increase in the mill rate. I would like to suggest that you go back to the $200,000 and save the other $200,000 for next year. As we all know, property reevaluations will be happening later this year, and this will affect our property taxes next year. We have also heard that the fire department and EMS will need more funds next year to cover all shifts. Then I took some hard looks at the current budget. I see where department heads and the admin assistant were denied a one-time increase to bring their salary to a better living wage and be more in line with other newer department heads. These department heads, who have dedicated many years to our town, are integral to the proper running of our town. I would ask you to approve those one-time increases for these very important people. There are 6 departments in the town hall that have part-time employees with titles of assistants at about 10 hours per week. One department has a new director that has been in the position for just over a year and has 2 part-time employees. Everyone else has had to fight to get a part-time assistant and go through the Board of Selectmen and proper protocols. Park and Rec did not do this. They just made up a position without submitting a job description to the BOS for approval. No job posting, no interviews, no transparency, and this department is now requesting another full-time assistant. This will add approximately $60,000 to the Park and Rec budget when payroll should have gone down about $25,000 because there are no lifeguards to hire for the summer program. The new position will be covering old positions that previously cost approximately $16,000 and equal about 750 to 800 hours. I also see that the $25,000 that was put in the budget for drainage issues last year has not been used for that. While that was a one-time request from Park and Rec, they now have increases in their fee program of $25,000. This year's fee program line is anticipated to go over by $12,000. Who has oversight of this? How is this prudent? Have you looked at the list of expenditures? $10,000 for a community day? Why not work on enlarging the library carnival or the land trust picnic? I would also question the $1,000 allotted for each sports program. Food service was taken out of the director's job description purposely many years ago, so there should not be $3,000 for senior luncheons. And I believe that was also increased in the social services department line. All the town hall departments are very frugal and only ask for increases when needed. It seems apparent that the Park and Rec department is being frivolous with taxpayers' money. Why are we cutting police protection? In the last year, KCS-BOE and 2 former state troopers have advocated for an additional LEO in town. The BOS worked in a compromise of sorts and added $66,000 for additional police protection. When the Board of Finance asked them to reduce their budget, that is one of the first lines they cut. They also cut other safe items like numerous legal fees and the contingency line. These are items that if the budget goes over, the BOS can ask the Board of Finance and the taxpayers to make a line item transfer. The BOS seems to be cutting the needs of the town over the wants of a commission that has no oversight of their employee. I was really thought we would start out with a presentation of the budget, a quick overview, but we didn't. So I'm hoping to hear how the BOE justifies the payroll increase while the student enrollment is decreasing. Otherwise, I highly encourage the BOE budget. Here we see the Park and Rec Department, it's capital plan now. Here we see the Park and Rec Department thinking frivolously once again. In fact, I'm not just subjectively saying that. The Park and Rec Director himself says this on record, making a comment saying, "We will add our wish list knowing it will be cut down by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance." A previous commission actually went through the data regarding a splash pad. It was deemed not viable between location, maintenance, demographics, and the limited number of residents who would use it. You find it enjoyable. The current Park and Rec Director just picked a number. This was also mentioned in the meetings. They did no background research. The director asked a friend in another town what they paid when they put theirs in a few years ago. Different location, different state, and pre-COVID prices. Not factual data to put into a 5-year capital plan. Taxing the Kent residents for a project with so little concrete data is irresponsible at best. The Emery Park pool has been lying dormant and should be the first repair, especially since the funds are available. After I saw the initial capital plan requests, I made a statement that if Park and Rec really needed a vehicle, then buy one now and buy a used one. Why wait 5 years? They did recently purchase a used vehicle for approximately $6,000. I don't believe they will need $35,000 for a car in 5 years. When the current vehicle retires, they can get another used vehicle. It should not be used much, nor does it need to go far. Respecting the taxpayers' pocketbooks should be a priority. Finally, the master plan. This idea was started years ago by a commission member, but it has been tabled for most of the time since first proposed. I never saw the need for this as we only have 2 parks and the cost is very high. The new director himself said it was a waste of money. At a previous job he worked, they did one and it promptly went to the bottom of someone's desk drawer. Why not partner with one of our local land trusts and work on trail management or the environmental sciences department through the private schools, which Park and Rec had started to do many years ago. Your attention to the above-mentioned budget items will bring to the citizens of Kent a much more palatable budget in line with the Kent we all know and love. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the Board of Ed like to speak?
Was there something about the Board of Ed in there? I lost track.
Share information. It was about the cost with the enrollment decline.
Justifying the higher payroll with lower decrease.
Actually, we worked really hard to get some of the money out of that section. We took our network administrator down to a part-time position. We're getting rid of one of the paraprofessional positions, and we have worked with the region to have our office staff do some work for the region during the day, so that.
And it still went up 100,000.
Well, I mean, we have contractual cost of living increases. Obviously, everybody gets a raise. It went up 70,000. And we did work very hard to minimize that.
Up here, because the people at home can't hear you. Yeah, I mean, you can both come up here, that's fine. We could barely hear the exchange up here. I said, yes.
I don't have the right one. I apologize if it's only 7, I thought
70.
70. So I raised it to 8.
You know, please come up here so we can hear what you're discussing, so people at home can hear.
On line 1 under teachers, it's an $87,000 increase. And then on the principal, who's getting a 7.5% increase, that's another 10,000. So you're looking at almost 100,000 there.
Okay, but overall, that category is 70. And the increase to the teachers line is due to raises, and we also have some degree changes, which, you know, increases the step cost. The principal, we explained at the budget presentation, we did a market research. We're actually doing it all throughout the region. And we discovered that our administrators in the region were not paid comparable to other districts, especially when you factor in that our region operates a little uniquely. We have one superintendent for 7 schools, so our building administrators are required to do a lot of tasks that would normally fall to a superintendent, like preparing the budget, like serving on the facilities committee, doing teacher evaluations. And so we made a one-time adjustment, it's going to be this year and next year, to try to bring her salary more in line with market rates.
You should listen to them more about our admins and people. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Board of Selectmen, did you wish to speak? Yes. Did you wish to speak to any of the questions that were raised at this time? Thank you for turning down the AC. It's getting frosty in here.
And as I said at the Board of Finance meeting, I think every department came with very sharpened pencils. I know that there are departments that are trying to innovate, there are departments that are rebuilding, and I think that the Board of Selectmen was sensitive to that and really tried to strike a balance as we went through the process and then came back and made the cuts. I'm not going to get too verbose. So that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak who has not had an opportunity? Oh, yes, I beg your pardon, you wanted to speak.
I'm Tom Ryan. I've been kind of following along with this process of these meetings for the last couple of months. And last meeting, it seemed like we had decided that the Board of Ed budget was fine just the way it is. So I was very happy to hear that. And so maybe I'm just speaking to the future, but that might be a worthwhile thing to do. I think most people can understand that there is a value to a quality public school system in the town. Not just the children not just for parents of children in the school, but for everyone. It creates jobs in our town. These people who work at the school are members of our community. And I think we have to remember that. A lot of them live here, a lot of them, so they pay taxes here. Additionally, most of us, our biggest investment is our home, and a quality school system is very strongly correlated with the value of your home. So doing any damage to that will do damage to my value in my own home along with everybody else's. And it is important to remember the Board of Ed came in with a pretty flat budget, but we're not factoring in things like increased costs of energy and all that. And there were, despite a pretty flat budget, there were 2 jobs. There have been 2 jobs lost at the school last year and this coming year. So that's a reduction of 2 jobs in town, which I think is kind of an issue. The other thing, if we're speaking to the future, is I think any cut to the Board of Ed budget has to be seen in the larger context. And one of the things that really struck me as part of the larger context was a document that is attached to the minutes of the February 9th Board of Finance meeting. And it was submitted by the chair of the Board of Finance. And in the final page of the document, and I think a reasonable person would probably look at this and think this is a goal. It describes 1/3 of the teachers at the school as implied extras. So I guess the goal would be to eliminate those 8 jobs, which I think would come with other reductions in jobs for support staff and whatnot. So if you're firing, removing, getting rid of whatever, 1/3 of the teaching staff at a school, you're going to do a pretty large amount of damage to that school. So I think, so to me, I look at any cuts to the school budget as steps to this goal, which is something I really don't want to see. The other thing that I think is pretty wrong with this document is it talks about, it kind of the headline here is student enrollment trends. Using a population trend as any sort of predictor of the future is seriously misguided. This here, I got some experts if somebody wants to look. This is Kent's population, US Census data through time. So here we have 1820, here we have now. This is about 1830. So Kent's population has been all over the place. The trend line is up, but the fit of that trend line is really bad. However, if you were living here in 1920, this is what that would have looked like. And this trend line fits really well. So if you were thinking of population changes as a predictor of the future, you would have looked around and you would have said, this town is going to have 0 people living here in 2005, which clearly it doesn't. Now, meanwhile, if you lived here in about 2006 or 1960, you would have thought you would be looking at this. You would have been thinking this town is booming like crazy. But none of these things actually act as predictors. You can look back on these things, and in the past, you can make sense of them. So here we have the increased urbanization of America. Everybody was moving out of the country to the city. Then the Depression hit, and that put a screeching halt on that trend. Now we have kind of the post-war years. Everyone bought cars and everyone moved to the suburbs or the exurbs or rural areas. There's all sorts of different choices that make up these decisions, but it's not a natural process. So just because something's going down for a while doesn't mean that next year it won't shoot up. We could have 14 people in kindergarten one year and 30 the next year. There's not really any way. And in fact, census data shows that Kent currently has the highest population it's ever had in its history, which means maybe we are going to see more kids. And I know Kent skews older, but parenthood skews older these days. I'm an example of that. Yeah, I mean, so just looking at these trends and saying, oh, we're on our way down. It's not an accurate way to look at the world. People's choices make up all these little things. And you can actually see these choices when you look back. Like here's 1970 and 80, our population shot up wildly because New York City was going down the tubes. So everybody left. And these things only make sense looking backwards, not as a way to say, oh, this is definitely going to happen in the future. Our school is going away. That's just not true. Especially looking at 5 years of data. That's just not a good way to make a decision this large, where you're looking at saying, perhaps eliminating a third of the teachers. I just don't think you can do it based on this kind of information. So again, I think I'm speaking to the future because the last time I was here, everyone seemed happy with the school budget, but I just want to kind of reiterate some of those points that we should continue supporting that school because it does this town a lot of good in general. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So a point of information about the,
Chair, Madam,
yes,
would you allow me instead of you, so you know?
you go right ahead.
And the reason, a few observations. One is, we're actually of different parties, interestingly
Yes, we are.
enough, you know. And I would say that the Board of Finance, to a person, is very much committed to the health and the future of the school. We understand how important that the school is to, as someone said here, the robustness of the school has a lot to do with the robustness of the real estate market, et cetera. We all understand that. In defense of that document that was brought up, again, you know, and I said it at the time, et cetera, that was not a plan, it wasn't an objective or anything else. It was provocative because we are trying to have these types of conversations as a board. And I will tell you, I did not look at it as anything other than I thought it was a very helpful thing that the chairman was doing. She was kind of laying out the straw man for us so that we could see what we were dealing with. It has nothing to do with an aspiration for where we're going to go with the school or where any of us want to go with the school. But on the other hand, I think that if, frankly, the chair or anybody else on this board, in the public meeting thing where everything is public, if we're not able to offer, frankly, provocative thinking on it because we're afraid we're going to get criticized, you're not going to be well served by this board. And I say that as someone who didn't write that document, but I understood it at the time. I was very comfortable with it. I found it useful because it frankly picked a few holes in things, but it was not, let's go down this path. And so just so that you understand, that's not what that document is. It never was thought of that way by us, but we have a disclosure requirement saying this was something we all looked at, so you have the right to see it also.
A point of information too, that first page that you were alluding to is from the Connecticut State Department of Education.
I'm aware.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I guess my response would be,
Please come up here so we can, everybody hears you, it's important.
yeah, I mean, the one thing about being provocative is sometimes you provoke people.
Well said. Okay, anyone else here wishing to speak? Anyone here? Okay.
I'm going to say something.
Oh, please, jump right up.
Hi. I'm Elizabeth Bernard. I live at 315 South Kent Road. I'm on the rec commission. I'm a teacher at Kent Center School. So I grew up in Kent, so I got a lot of skin in the game. I think the full-time full-time park and rec position is essential to the growth in this town. I have two young, I was a product of park and rec. I went to all the programs. The programs and Park and Rec as a whole didn't change a lot since I was a kid 20 years ago. And now you have someone in this position who's passionate about providing programs to the kids. Not only the kids, we've got senior center going and like all these amazing things happening. My great grandmother's going to these programs, all of these things that are new to the town. And I just feel so strongly right now, like my kids don't have a good park to go to. There's not a place for my kids to swim. The one thing we have right now is our Wednesday night T-ball practice. And there's people from out of town who are then going to the Pizza Garden for dinner. And I just think, I know our Park and Rec director right now can't maintain the level of growth that he's at if you cut this position. And also knowing what's good for kids is consistency is good for kids. And having this full-time position is going to lead to consistency at the after-school program. Consistency for kids, seeing that same face at summer camp. So I just really believe like you need to support the kids who are here, and you can do that by continuing to go forward with the full-time park and rec position.
Thank you. Is it right on that point, or, because we said that we were going to give everybody one chance before we gave our folks at home a chance?
Fair enough.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Anyone else wishing to speak who has not had a chance to speak yet? Okay. So, people at home, anyone wishing to speak at home? I guess raise your hand is probably the best way to do it, either physically or using your Zoom hand. We got any takers? Going once? Going twice? Okay, well, we'll come back around again. Chris, please.
Chris Carey, 92 North Main, for the record. I'm going to pick up on what Debbie said about park and recreation. And I remember, actually, there's a board member on here, Board of Finance, who actually played baseball way back when in park and recreation. Some of you in this room may recall I was the chairman of Park and Recreation when we went from the chairman and a part-time person doing all of the work to finally figuring out we needed somebody. At that point, we had 4 Little League teams. We had 3 minor league teams, if Alan remembers correctly. We had soccer. We had tons of kids, and that waned, as noted in sort of the way things go. And as I understand, it sounds like there's actually a burgeoning group coming now, and I applaud Park and Rec to getting their director. However, I'm a little skeptical that after only 1 year in a position, the person is getting a $4,000, actually, I'm sorry, that's not true. Over 4 years, there's been a $4,000 increase in that position. When you actually look at the tax collector over 4 years, they've only gotten $4,000. And then to add an assistant, I think is premature. It may be needed, may be warranted, but I don't think it's actually been proven yet. And I think that would be a smart thing to look at and have. So I would suggest that we table that until you can actually get a better look at it. And again, with Park and Rec, I know they've sort of been in this flux, but because of COVID, the Emery Park was not open for the last number of years. Was that last year?
No.
So it's not been opened, and yet in the capital line coming through this year is $100,000 for Emery Park. And my question would be, for what? And what is the plan? What's the goal? Again, I'm a proponent of Park and Rec. I worked very hard for years on it. I would like to see it continue, but I'd like to see it with an actual goal. And in fairness to those who are running it now, times have changed. When we were there were no pools at anyone's house to go swimming at. And now there are. So there are alternatives, and I think I would recommend that they look at that. But aside from Park and Rec, I know it's a little early, Barbara, but do we know how much money's coming back this year?
The projection that I have is, I'm saying 137,000, but that's preliminary because the departments haven't had an opportunity to weigh in yet.
And that doesn't include the school, which some.
It does, it includes everybody.
Okay. And am I reading this correctly? Our debt service is only $13,000? Well, yay for us.
I'm only reading the interest piece. There's a principal piece above it.
Yeah.
That's 25,000, so the whole debt service is 38 something, but that's correct.
Yeah.
Now there is no debt service other than that.
So I think that's shines well on all of us. But that said, we have a undesignated fund of 3.3 million. And we're only spending $400,000 to drop the mill rate. So typically, I think it was, when I was on the board of finance, we kept 20%. And so I would recommend that we work really hard to take the money that we've been taxed already on. And I want to make this point, because when I was on the board of finance, for some reason it wasn't sticking. But every time we get tax money coming back in return, even if it's $100,000, let's just say conservatively, that's money we've taxed already. And then we use that money to push down the mill rate. And that's not budgeting. What that is double taxation. So again, going back to the mill rate, it would encourage us to use our money that we've already been taxed, keep our mill rate down, and go back to the drawing board and see if we can't cut in places that aren't proven, like the Park and Rec and a few other places. Thank you.
Did you want to speak to some of that.
The debt service?
Yes.
If you want me to. At the
Yes.
last Board of Finance meeting, I had presented a proposal where the current streetscape expenditures, instead of being covered by debt service, which has already been approved by the taxpayers, that expenditure gets paid down over 5 years by transfers from the undesignated general fund. So the Board of Finance moved at their last meeting to transfer $260,000 a year for the next 5 years to pay off that expense in lieu of issuing any debt service and incurring costs that we don't need to incur.
Any question, I may? What's the interest rate on that loan, on that debt?
What debt?
On the-
That we would be avoiding, what is the assumed interest that we would?
What's the interest we're paying on it?
We aren't paying any interest.
No, but when you were
saying if we were to
presenting to
borrow.
us, what was the savings? 'Cause we had a document. Yeah. Just
Right
because it's there.
now, the interest rates, it depends on what you're going for. USDA loans right now are about 2.9%. A bank loan is about 4%. Bond anticipation note is about 3.9, and a bond issue is about 3.36. Those numbers change.
Right, but to me, that's cheap money. And if we're paying off and we have very little debt, I mean,
There's also administrative costs.
I get it, I know, you gotta go bond, I understand all this.
And frankly, I mean, I think we're trying to be conservative because the rate environment is what the rate environment is now. And where the rate environment is going to be,
Going up.
you know, we know that it's not a pretty picture. So we frankly, I think, concluded that we had a prudent approach here and we can always borrow down the road. But we don't have to do it now. And we think that is the most, frankly, judicious way to approach this.
Okay. And just one other point, I think Lynn pointed out, in the past, the Board of Finance has actually gone through the budget and pointed out, so is that going to happen next year or?
That was already done.
We've had a very robust.
Yeah, we've done that, the Board of Selectmen did that, and the Board of Ed did that in great detail.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Tom, come on back.
I had no intention of talking about this when I came to this meeting, but since we're talking about the rec budget a lot, I mean, one of the things about the rec budget is, you know, times have changed in ways that sometimes aren't so hot. You know, so we talk about, oh, this was what it was like 20 years ago or whatever. I mean, I grew up not in Kent, but in another town in Northwest Connecticut. And when I was a kid, the Lions Club ran every single sports league, and every dad, it was basically compulsory that you coached. You know, so I'm actually coaching one of the kids' baseball groups this year, but it's just not that easy for that many people to do that anymore. There's way more households where both parents are working. So it's so much harder nowadays to get, you know, dads and moms to volunteer to run these things because they don't have nearly as much time. So, I mean, that's really all I have to say about that. I know it affects the number of resources that the Parks and Rec Department needs to run programs because they can't draw from that pool of volunteers that we all remember from when we were young. So, I mean, you would hope that kids today don't necessarily have to pay too high a price for that difficulty. So that's really all I want to say about that, but yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak here? Anyone? Okay, it's numbers, oh, yes, we have Jean, okay.
Thank you. So just to talk about the mill rate for a minute, looking at the 21 towns of the COG, when you take all of the mill rates in each of the towns
Kent is on the lower end of the middle. Of the 21 towns, there are 6 towns that have lower mill rates. There are 14 towns that have higher mill rates. When you expand that out to the entire state and you look at what's the range of mill rates, not including fire districts and special curious little taxing districts, the highest mill rate is 32.46. The lowest is 11, which is Salisbury, which has a much larger grand list. So I just wanted to share that to sort of frame some of the comments. Regarding the full-time position for the program person for Park and Rec, the Board of Selectmen did have a number of conversations about the position, and they were of the opinion that the full-time program director is warranted. And Chris's comments speak exactly to the need. The workforce in the northwest corner is very difficult, especially with part-time positions. People are looking for full-time positions. He is one person. The expansion of programming in Park and Rec under Jared's watch is something this town has not seen in 20 years. He's partnered with Club Getaway. He's partnered with Kent School Aquatic Center to get us swimming, which I never thought in my lifetime I would see that. He's partnered with Warren Park and Rec for trips and multiple other organizations to create relationships to not only bring programs, but co-opt those inter-town partnerships to save money. Participation at activities is extremely high. I think we had 130 people at the recent Easter egg hunt. Public feedback into my office from both families and even students when I see them are, they're excited for the first time in a long time about Park and Rec. Now that the bulk of the child and family programming is sort of at a good level, he's going to start focusing on the large part of our population, which is those who are over 55. And just, I believe it was yesterday, there was a Quattro de Mayo lunch at the senior center that he organizes, and there were 40 participants at that lunch. That's something that we don't see, we have not seen. So there is need for more expansion, and I think the way to do this, and the Board of Selectmen think the way that can be accomplished is through a full-time person. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room here wishing to speak? Anyone zooming in wishing to speak? No, it's very silent. Okay. Well,
Yeah. Say something. My name is Thomas Ford. I'm the after-school program director. I'm gonna make this short. Really, I've been watching upstairs, trying to get, the confidence to come downstairs and to speak to all of you. I'm gonna say this really quick. I have been here for about a year now, and while I have helped Jared on my own free time and on the clock, I'm really only looking forward to progressing, the development of these kids that I work with. I am 21 years old. I'm young to say, and I love what I do. I just want to say that the benefit of this town is to move forward with the Kent Park and Recreation Department, and I love these kids. That's all I'm here to say. And if these kids get new people to come and work with them, they're not going to feel comfortable expressing themselves. That's all I'm here to say. I just want to look forward to, I don't know many people in here, and I'm sure you guys have no idea who I am until just now, but these kids are amazing. This town is amazing. And I appreciate you guys as well for what you guys have said as well. I am nervous, as you guys can tell. I am shaking. Doing great. I haven't started just yet, but I will. But really, it's for the benefit of the children moving forward, as well as for the people that live in this town as well. And I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for giving your own opinions. But a big thing moving forward is for these kids, and these kids make a huge impact to this town and to the future of this town. And while they may not be here to give their own opinion, I'm sure they would like to say that they love what they do right now, and how do I put this, that, they want the familiarity of, I would say as right now, as myself, they don't want to change moving forward. I've gotten these kids to express themselves in a way they never have with an after-school program director. And, while this is for a position for the Kent Park and Rec, I just want to say I'm more focused on these kids for what I do. And I think it's a great idea to keep the familiarity of myself or to any director for a long period of time. Whether this happens or not, it's of course not up to me. And yes, I do not live in this town, but the only thing I want moving forward is for these kids to grow and develop under, Jared is the current Park and Recreation Director. He has gotten these kids to come out of their comfort zones, to express themselves, and he's done an incredible job, no matter what anybody else says. He's changed my character, my perspective of this whole town, and, coming in about a year ago, I think, he's done an incredible job, and I think the only way we move forward as a town, and, I say we because I love being here and I love working here. Well, I may not live here, but I think, the best way to move forward, guys, is to keep changing things, keep moving forward and changing, perspectives, getting ideas from everybody. While this may seem like much nonsense to some people, because I'm definitely repeating myself now. I just wanted to get some words out. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, come on up.
Hi, it's Debbie again. Tom, this is not about you. You do not have a job. This is about making it full-time. Please do not think it's about you. Don't assume it's about you because you do not have the job. I don't think it should be full-time. Of course, he should stay on part-time. I'm not saying fire the kid, but keep it part-time. That's what the issue is, not the personality.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone? One more chance. Okay, anybody home? Or wherever you are? And we have no takers. So at this point, I think I would like to close the annual budget hearing with many thanks to people who were here, and we'll reconvene our Board of Finance meeting. And there are potential discussion items and action items on the agenda, as you all saw. Are there any items that you all would like to discuss?
Other than we're gonna have another pass it, finalize the budget after this.
No.
So this is it.
Yeah, this is the meeting where we do it, yes.
Well, then I would say there's kind of two issues. One is, we had at our last meeting, some concerns about, and I think, and in this room also about protective, service, which was pulled out of the budget, and whether or not, that was, given some things going on in town, et cetera, whether or not that was a wise thing to do.
This is the trooper question.
That's right, the overtime, whoever we're dealing with it. And, I did think that was a legitimate concern raised, and also that I thought we might be able to look at some areas where we can, again, nickel and dime to kind of come up with something that might be able to address.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I have another thought too, is what, in terms of what we have in the undesignated fund, what wiggle room do we have in there to tap that in for more than we have?
Well, if you look at this page.
Yeah, I'm in.
This page. It's based on my projections, this bottom line here. That's the amount that's above the recommended reserve after the transfer to the, after this $400,000 transfer. So that's $1 million, but that's before the $260,000 transfer to capital for this year.
And frankly, I think, I can't remember, was it you, Chris, somebody raised the ARPA question. You know, both, I found it very helpful that info was alongside of the budget. And frankly, I do think, from my perspective, where we might find a few dollars is some of the budget allocations we've made. I frankly think, keeping in mind that there is ARPA support that we might be able to pull a bit of our extra funding back and pool that to fund, you know.
Because of the.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that we don't consume all the ARPA money, obviously, but I think, you know, the town ought to share, you know, in what's going on too.
So that the ARPA money comes with very specific rules that you shall not supplant.
Yeah, we can't just.
And you cannot supplant operating costs with that money. That was to do.
But I guess the question is, how much, because
COVID.
I don't see anywhere where we was do something that, I'm saying take down an increase to a certain level. If we can do that, we might find, you know, some extra resources to fund public safety.
Do you have some recommendations?
Well, yeah, I do. Let's see, where's my, I mean, you know, and a couple other things. I also frankly thought even the Parks and Recs thing, which I had been on, you know, very, very much. So I still think there is a way, even if we took that Park and Recs full-time thing and we had 2 part-timers who therefore we were not paying benefits to, that would say there's 15,000 there. You know, you've got library money, you know, where we're going up, and I know that the Board of Selectmen already kind of pulled back a bit on what they were going to do for that, but I frankly think there's another 5,000 to 10,000 there. And youth services even, $3,000, where we're not, again, cutting down from where we were last year. But nonetheless, in terms of prioritizing things, I do want to be mindful of the public safety considerations. And frankly, on the Parks and Rec, I still think, by the way, I know we keep hearing that you can't get 2 part-time people in Parks and Recs. I just don't agree with that. I happen to think, I'll just give you a good example. One of the great things about that department, is there is no reason that you can't, in this environment, you've got school teachers as they retire who are looking for part-time work. And I just think we've got to be more creative about it, as opposed to locking ourselves into something that going forward. Also, we are stuck with that. And I think, we do hear these concerns, and I just think I would rather have more flexibility, frankly. So again, I am very supportive of where Parks and Rec's trying to do new things, but I think also we have to do everything all at once. And, and if we can in the process find some dollars to at least half fund overtime on public safety, that might be worth the trade-off.
I would say, I've been pretty open about this, that as somebody that regularly hires people in the northwest corner, there is no part-time. People are not. I cannot find people to work part-time. I can barely find people to work full-time. I can barely find people to work full-time at market rate. So trying to find 2 part-time positions to come to a town where there is no housing stock, there's no apartments, you're looking at an elderly workforce that may not be able to work the hours that are needed. In my hard-won experience, I don't know that you're going to find 2 part-time positions to save money on benefits. I just don't. And I also vehemently disagree with cutting anything that the library does. It's the one public space we have in this town, really, too, that brings people together, that has space
for people to use the internet, to look for jobs, and they're looking to expand. I wouldn't want to cut that to, I would rather take more money out of undesignated funds to fund things than cut the library.
Just as a point of information, this young man who gave us his views and showed how much he cared about the kids. When he says that he's after school, does that mean he's a part-time Park and Rec employee, or is he a part-time Board of Ed employee?
Park and Rec runs that program.
So we're looking to make what his part-time position is, or the Park and Rec budget is, into a full-time position, or Jason's suggesting we try to get a second person like Tom and Rufus is
We
saying.
have 2 part-timers.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we already have 2 part-timers,
They have 2 part-timers?
2 part-time assistants.
Would you even like to speak to that? You would
So just
provide
to-
more information.
Yeah, just to fill in the gaps, so the after-school program runs after school, so roughly 3 o'clock to 5:30, so that's a Monday through Friday. If there's and that's hourly. If there's a holiday, if there's a snow day and school is called, then they don't have the after-school program. So it's a very, very tough time to find somebody for that. Basically, they get to the school around 2:45 and then they have to see it through till 5:30. But it's a tough time of day and it's a couple of hours a day. It was 2020, we were chasing this so badly because we could not keep a director, and we need somebody to oversee the program, to be there every single day. Plus, we have a couple of part-time workers who help, depending on how many kids are there. So it was in such a disarray because we couldn't keep somebody, that there were a couple of weekends where Lynn Harrington and I were on the phone all weekend trying to find somebody to cover so that we wouldn't have to cancel. And if we have to cancel the after-school program, you've got anywhere from 6 to 14 families who now have no after-school care for their kids. And I mean, that's a massive failure on our part, and that's a huge, huge problem for these families who work out of town and they need this program. So that's the after-school program. The camp program, which is the other part-time position that would be combined, is really just summer. So it's that, June-ish for the prep to, late August when the program winds down. So the thinking is, and this is in the folder that, with the background on why they wanted to add this position, was if you combine those two into one, then you've got one person who's a steady all year round and can cover both of those programs. So that's a little bit of background.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And the after school is open to all grades, or?
Yeah, pre-K through up six.
Kindergarten through, really through 8th if they needed it.
Right, and they just register for it, is there a cost or effort?
Thank you for that information. So,
We're talking about $16,000 for the thing. I mean, if we transferred $450,000 from the unassigned fund, and said we're putting back the $16,000 into the.
In terms of the extra police.
Of the
Police overtime.
Overtime.
did you? Yes, Chris?
Point of order, is the hearing closed and you guys are discussing it, or is this hearing still open?
Oh, I closed the hearing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the vote.
Oh. Did I forget to call the vote again? No.
I didn't hear a closing of the hearing, so that's why the public.
So we'll have general questions at the end of the budget meeting, of the finance meeting also.
Right. But we will, Chris, we'll have public comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just didn't know when it was.
Yeah, we were just closing, we'd not shut down for the night yet. So, did you want to make a motion, Fran? Get something on the table?
in terms of the definition.
That's what you were speaking about.
Right, yes, and I think, Rufus, were we looking at 450? Is that workable?
What's the motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we move from the undesignated fund $450,000 so that the budget can go as proposed. Is that?
To reinstitute the amounts of money for the overtime for the police.
Never include that. Or do you want to start with that as a
Friendly
motion?
amendment to that motion, or?
What's the figure?
Well, I thought that was the reason for adding more.
Well, we have to, no matter what, we have.
But it depends on what the motivation is of the person making the motion.
Well, we need to look at that and to supplement the Park and Rec position and not to make the cuts as you had anticipated.
So your motion would be laid out so Bonnie can get the notes clear and people at home can hear you. Speak up.
I mean, I think we've got apples and oranges here. I think some of the stuff that we're trying to deal with this extra money for is already in the budget.
Yes.
We're not taking out of the budget.
Right.
And then if we're gonna add to the 400,
Right.
part of the motion, I think should be where we want to designate to spend it.
So,
And I guess just my thing, as we've heard it, in the budget meeting anyway, some comments about it. I still think, again, as someone who supports what we're doing in Parks and Rec, sometimes back off a little bit as opposed to this foot fully on the gas pedal does not, to me, seem advisable. And I think that there are, you don't have to go full hold because I would like to see how some things are working. And I frankly would advise the management of Park and Rec maybe to back off a little bit and let's see how things go. And you don't have to do everything in the next year that they want to do. I mean, that was why, frankly, I was with the splash pad. I wanted to push it out in the cap budget because I said, I'd like some more thinking on, is that the right thing? Push it out in the capital budget so that he's got some time to actually think strategically about Emery Park and that, and as opposed to, once you start, you're down a path. So,
Fran, you were talking about making a motion. Jason, you're talking about making a motion.
right. But I think we need to, this is, well, we'll have your motion for now, but I think there's discussion of the motion before we vote on it. And I think in the
Yes,
discussion of the motion, I still would say I'm uncomfortable with the Park and Rec's line, and that full-time in particular. I just think you can do it next year and you can do part-time this year. I just think that the answer is not necessarily.
Okay, we've got two different
Right.
things here. One is, more of the reserve and the
That's
other
right.
is a cut.
Well, that's-
So is there a second to, Fran, do you want to try and frame that motion? This is in addition to the 400 that we have already
So you would like,
designated.
and you want to up the 400 to 450, is that what you're saying? As a motion? In order to cover the public
Yes.
safety?
Yes.
Yes, so you want to add 50,000 more. Is there a second for that?
Only if we designate, well,
You can make a.
I would amend it to say, and as part of that extra $50,000, we restore into the budget the money for the overtime for the security officer.
Which is really what that'd be for.
Which is why we would do it. If we're not going to do that, then I don't see why we need to go from 4 to 450.
Okay, is there further discussion on that motion?
Right? First thing is a second.
Are you saying?
Seconded it.
But I amended it.
Oh, I thought you were going to second it. Okay, does anyone want to second that? If you- Yes.
What is the actual?
Yeah, Fran, what is the actual motion? Please, Fran. What?
There was a point of order.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to interject in the sense of hearing the potential path you may be going down. Wouldn't it be advisable to identify what lines you're adjusting and by how much, whether they're going to increase or decrease, and get a net figure? Which then at that point, you would then be able to identify what money is truly needed to transfer from the undesignated funds. So to leave that transfer motion, in my opinion, as suggestion, should be a separate motion in itself.
Right.
And those motions shouldn't be tagged to.
Right.
If we do this, if we do that. I think that you have ideas you're putting out there, but you should tackle them
One at
for
a
what
time.
they are, and then potentially look at the transfer of undesignated funds. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
I think we basically are. I mean, we know what the funding of the public safety
But
is.
Fran needs to make the motion that she wanted to make, which was,
I'm just trying to look at the figure for the overtime. Do you?
What was it? Was it
well,
60?
no, Fran, if you would just make a motion
I will make a
to,
motion to take another $50,000 from the undesignated
I,
fund.
I think the suggestion is first find out what you need.
Right.
And then make the motion where you're gonna get the money for it.
Well, or,
Was that-
or frankly, I mean, I think she is.
Well, was that your intention, Fran?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so would you like to make that identification first then by the line item?
If I can find it.
Okay, well, we can help you find it.
Thank you.
257, just police protection, if that's what you're talking about.
And that way, it's very easy for people to tie out to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, so-
16,000.
Remember, what's the number?
257.
No, I'm saying just trying because it's not, it's just, I took it out here.
It's
16, right?
Yeah.
So, and 16 was what you had planned in the last budget to fund, protective overtime with, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what the selectmen had put in there for
Okay.
additional overtime hours.
Okay, so, and what we wanted, so,
So-
just to be clear, you got a 400 that you want to raise.
First, let's say we'd like to amend the budget
Right.
to put this
$16,000 back in.
Right, so,
I will make the motion to move $16,000 from the undesignated fund so that we can add in line item 257.
Second.
okay,
What?
That's, I mean, I think that motion has, for the undesignated fund motion has to come after we come up
yes,
Well, that's
that's two
what-
separate
one
pieces.
at a time.
Two separate
But her
pieces.
motion said
Right.
16,000 from the undesignated.
So 60,000, put back in.
So you, yes,
Thank you.
one is what you want to spend and the other is how you're
Yes,
going to pay for it.
exactly.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I'll try. I'd like to make a motion to put $16,000 back into the budget for police protection.
60,000.
16.
16, okay, that's why I wanted to make sure everybody hears the difference, okay. $16,000. Okay, and there's a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion fails.
Okay.
Okay, is there another motion that anyone would like to make? We have the capital plan, we have the unassigned fund, we have the transfer to capital fund, the tax collection rate, revenue projection, mill rate projection. Anybody want to tweak any of those?
Again, help me out here. If we take some money out of the undesignated fund, can we lower the projected mill rate increase that we're looking at?
Yes, that's
this
a
one?
direct correlation, so the more you take, the more you put in.
And right now, we've got in this document a mill rate that is flat.
No,
This is
you
not
know,
fair.
That's up.
It's not-
0.7, or almost 3/4 of a mil.
Yeah. So to bring that mill rate down, what I remember, it's 623,000 per mill,
Yes.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
and we have, in our undesignated funds, we have
On the blue line underneath your fingers.
The bottom of the page.
That's after the 400.
Right.
$260,000 that we transfer to pay for a streetscape for years. It's not, it's still in that.
So the 260 would come out of that bottom lines, yes.
That's leaving the 2-month cushion right there.
Right. Well, that's a bonding purposes, yeah. We're not going to be bonding anytime soon. You all need to speak up, people at home can't hear.
Barbara, where's the mill rate page on this again?
Which one? It's the first page.
Oh.
Or the second page, right here.
Right.
So, put 300 and another 300,000 from that.
You're talking 700,000?
Total, we'll make it 700 total then, with what's already been done. Right? Is that what you mean, Fran? So you take an
Yeah,
additional 300.
Yeah. That will give us a mill rate of
18.83 or a little, just a whisker above a quarter of, no. 1.4%. That's changing nothing in the budget.
and then we still leave us with 700 and the
66,000.
Is that a comfortable number or not?
For me, it's not, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, we have the 2 months, that's taking the 2 months of coverage out
Yeah.
prior to.
So that's still, it leaves us with the 700.
We don't want to completely deplete it.
No, no.
We do know that,
No.
there's fire
But again,
department
yeah.
and EMS calls or.
And I do think that the mill rate is impactful to a lot of people, and and times are tough, and I would like to keep it as low as we possibly can comfortably.
Point of information in terms of precedent, is it something that's done often?
Yes, it is. It's been done frequently over the years. Actually, if you go to I think it's turned to the third or fourth and fifth page of your budget book, you'll see at the bottom what has been utilized on an annual
The other
basis.
page. Yep, very bottom down
Yeah.
here. Shows you how much is appropriated for the next fiscal year's budget. It's sort of, well, I don't know if yours is in color, but it's pink.
Yeah, the sign that was used each year. Yeah.
Well, that's what was
Actually.
designated, but what was actually used is, on all those years, it's nothing because there was a surplus every year. That doesn't include that.
Okay.
So.
So where are we, as a,
So my proposal would be taking additional, did I say?
So you-
Say it loudly so people can hear you at home.
That would be a 0.25% increase.
right, okay.
You want to make the motion loudly?
What number am I at? 200, an additional 200, did I say?
Three.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a motion of taking an additional $300,000 out of the undesignated fund, which makes me get a total of $700,000 to be,
That's it. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Keep it simple. So
discussion.
is there a second?
Result-
I'll second. Second. Did anyone-
Well,
Is there a second for that?
like, just for clarity, and that would result in a projected mill rate of,
18.83.
so still under 19. Or it is under 19. I'd say that.
Okay, second by Jason. Further discussion?
So it would be 700 transferred into the unassigned fund, which would leave 766,000, which would really leave.
You all need to speak up. People can't hear you.
All right, so that would transfer 700,000 from the unassigned fund.
Yep.
Which would leave 766,325 in the unassigned fund, minus the 266,000. So we would have a surplus above the recommended reserve of 200 and, I can't do math in my head that big.
Hey, we would have more than,
Yeah.
yes.
And then if there are surpluses left, that would go in, back into the undesignated.
Yes.
So we
More
would,
than what I'm already projecting, that's correct.
did you catch that? Lucas?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any, okay, it's unanimous. Okay, so, yeah.
So, but we have,
Any other changes that anyone wishes to discuss making to the budget?
I guess the only one again, just to be giant window down, that's good, but if, so we have not dealt with the protective services, right? It's that big. And, you know, I guess the only question on that would be, again, if we were to find that amount elsewhere in the budget to fund that, where would you two be on that? So I still think you can,
It
frankly.
would depend on where you were gonna take it from.
So if we were looking for 16,000, again, I happen to think that if we had just went to 2 part-timers in Park and Rec, you could find a protective, restoration of the protective overtime with that. I happen to think that's worth it, and I would make a motion to basically, reduce the Park and Rec's budget by $16,000 in order to fund, give us the resources to fund the protective.
Well, it would have to be two
Well,
different
right, two
motions.
different, I understand.
It's in one line.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but that's right, but I'm sorry, so yes, the answer is,
Yep.
so to reduce Park and Recs by
Yep.
$16,000.
Okay. So.
So that would be
which
motion
are
one.
you- No, make your first motion.
So I would move to do that with, as motion one,
Say the
which is again to reduce the Park and Recs budget by 16,000.
What line item is
And
that?
that would be, where's my focus? 326.
Okay. By $16,000.
So that's right.
And is there a second for that? Is there a second for that? Okay.
I won't go forward. I won't move to the next motion.
Okay. Any other motions, discussions? So at this point, we are looking at mill rate, Madam Treasurer, since you're doing this on the fly.
18.83
Okay, everybody hear that? 18.83?
because the budget expenditure hasn't changed yet. Okay, unless I missed something
Right.
really reasonable.
All right. So, so the next meeting will be the town meeting, but I think that there might be some public comments that people might like to make.
We're in that point of the finance meeting.
Yeah, this is the closing. Please, if you'd like to say anything, went ahead of you there. Just, oh, no, Donna had your hand up, but if you come up to the podium, please, we're making everybody come up so people can hear at home today.
Sitting in the back row, I am completely lost. Can you please tell us right now, what you just did. Did you agree to eliminate the full-time position in Park and Rec?
No.
You agreed to take out a total of 700,000?
No, we took 300,000 from the reserve, from what that budget document currently states,
What's that? The budget
to
document?
offset the pain of the taxpayers and therefore reduce the mill rate.
From what was proposed.
The proposed mill rate was 1931.
Right.
You had a transfer from unassigned general fund.
Right.
At 400,000.
Right, that transfer has been modified to 700,000 based on the
Which is
last
what I
budget.
had asked. Okay, so it was, so you increased it by 300,000.
Yes,
And kept the Park and Rec position.
yes.
And the money that's coming out, that extra 300,000 is designated to go to where?
To enable us to
Lower the
lower the
mill rate,
from what
simply to
it-
lower the mill rate.
So it wasn't assigned
No,
to the extra police protection?
no, it was not, that did not.
And then we had a second
not get
discussion
spent.
on whether or not we were gonna move some things around within the budget.
But
Okay,
nothing,
but that fit.
nothing was changed, yes.
Okay, all right, so this is the change in
The revenue improvement and not touching the expenditures, basically.
Okay, all right, and that's what's going to be presented
That will go to the, yes.
the vote. So then you
Town meeting.
or approve it or deny it at that point.
Exactly.
Okay, right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to speak?
And Newton.
Just come on up, because people are having trouble hearing.
Be late, but I just wanted to make a point that within Parks and Rec, all the discussion has been about kids. And I'm thrilled that the program has advanced and that the children's needs are being served. But if you had two part-time people instead of one dedicated person who's only working with children, then there might be some adult programs that could take place. Or there could be people with expertise in a particular sport that would be a soccer person, a baseball person, instead of putting all the eggs in one basket and having no funds left for adult programming. I mean, it would be nice if there were exercise classes for people in their 50s and 60s, where there used to be, or other activities that could take place that serve the larger portion of our demographic population in town. I wish you would reconsider that.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone at home wishing to speak? Anyone? A very quiet group. But
I think Joe.
Joe?
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
No, nothing. Mute. Are you on mute?
Joe, turn your volume up. Yeah, you just muted
Now
yourself.
he muted himself.
Yeah, unmute yourself. Your speaker is not working.
That was for everybody?
Nobody else has signaled that they wish to speak, so.
Let's see, wait a second.
Oh, we've got the technician
honestly,
here.
expect support.
Okay.
Try again.
No?
Can't hear you, Joe.
No, Joe, we can't hear you.
Sorry.
Do you want to call?
You could type it in the chat.
Joe, if you want to type it in the chat, we can read it out loud.
Yeah. Okay, well, Joe's typing. Alan, why don't you go ahead and speak?
Alan Gobble, Fire Chief in Kent Rising. Nancy, you made a comment before, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood the comment and my understanding of your actions before. So again, thank you for this current fiscal year when we had discussed about the EMS staffing and where we are and so forth, and then the adjustment happened. And we talked about this earlier at your Board of Finance meeting and with Board of Selectmen and so forth. So again, thank you. And our EMS staffing committee is also working, and I know you were updated with this, but I just wanted to make it official so that the public, was here and so forth. That our committee is working with our current vendor, or our current staffing company. And we've also looked at the other two licensed companies in Connecticut to be able to provide the service. Because we want to make sure that we continue to provide the best service, for the residents of Kent, and working with the Kent Volunteer Fire Department, and also make sure that they are able to provide all the staffing hours that need filling in. And so I just wanted to go over that right now where our budget is in there, we gave you a number early on. But we did find just recently, like in the last couple of weeks, with this research and meetings with all these three companies that are licensed in Connecticut, similar to some of the discussions that happened here earlier. Mostly I'm going to focus on Rufus over here, where he said, I'm finding it hard to get people in this rural area. We found that people distance driving to Kent was a long way. The person that's on duty right now with me, I think comes from Stratford, Connecticut. That's her drive, and she's here. And then does her shift and then leaves. So we find that 100%. And I'm saying that not to give verification to what you're saying, but just as it is part of that. The second thing is we also did asked them to do for us a very detailed rate analysis. In other words, what are we paying? And I heard you guys speaking before, and I heard people in the crowd talking about that related to department heads and so forth. So we found out that the rate that we were paying, which is good for a lot of things, is on the low side of what's there. So we were feeling great. We've done this, we found the lowest price there. But we're also finding that this is a factor in the ability of somebody driving from Stratford to come here and work. Okay, they just can't do it. And again, I think Rufus, you'd made the comment about apartments, housing, and as you all know, and you've participated in these discussions in years past, it's part of the reason why we don't have people able to volunteer with free time, extra time, and so forth, and that, or even live here and that stuff. I've come to you before and talked about how volunteer members left the town because they went to areas that were able to, where they could try to get a more affordable rate to live and their families and so forth. So again, just to make that out there, and just again, as part of a thank you for your awareness and working with this and so forth. And so as we move forward in this fiscal year, I can't tell you for sure that those numbers are changing, but as I was told in general, and Nancy, as you had made a comment earlier when you were talking about your undesignated revenues and funds and so forth, and we're fortunate, Barbara keeps an eye and keeps that communication, going back where you're at, what's projection, what it's looking like, and we do the same thing internally. Bonnie leads that, for us as our EMS and ambulance chief. So we're watching that, we're seeing, but I wanted to make sure, again, you were aware, so I appreciate your comment. I appreciate everything that's happened and that you are in that undesignated fund. So as we see, and again, we will continue to do that, keep you updated as it goes, as the year progresses, and where we are and what we're doing. And we do currently have 2 people that are enrolled in EMS classes. We had, 2 that came out last year. Unfortunately, only 1 was able to stay with us in that setup. But I just wanted to make sure that it was clear you officially heard it tonight, during your meeting as it goes in. Thank you.
Yes.
I have Joe's comment.
Oh, please read them for us.
So he says, has the Park and Rec position been changed to 2 part-time positions?
No.
No.
Also, if it is now part-time, would Kent give us stipend in addition to a part-time paycheck?
But it didn't carry anyway.
It didn't carry, it didn't change from what's in the budget. Joe, did you hear that? Can you nod? Okay. Okay, thanks. All right. Any other comments? Oh, yes, please.
I had a couple of things. First, I've started following BOF a lot more recently. You've seen me at meetings and stuff. So can you explain what happens next year when we have these monetary increases, but we don't have $700,000 to put into the budget and we have the reevaluation increases? Are we gonna get hit really hard next year?
We can't tell you what's gonna happen next year.
But we're not gonna have $700,000 to offset the budget again. I think that's a high amount.
We are leaving $700,000 alone right now.
So we use that next year and then we're down to nothing?
No, like I said, I can't say that. I can't say what money's going to be returned to the town. I can't say what the revaluation. Sorry.
We already know that the, reevaluations are gonna increase their taxes, so.
Maybe yes, maybe.
Not necessarily.
In general,
Some will
that's
go
not
up.
how it's
Generally, what happens is some go up and some go down.
After everything that's happened in the last couple of years with house sales, it's probably gonna change.
But we have the ability, right,
If we adjust the mill
adjust two
rate,
things.
the mill rate adjusts accordingly. It'll change dramatically after the revaluation.
I'm a little worried about this. So a couple of things about the Park and Rec again. As far as the ASP director, we had always had great ASP directors that lasted many years. We did lose one, probably 2018, 19, somewhere in there before COVID hit. And then the school was shut down, so there was nobody. And then when they opened back up, people weren't ready to come out. We had only a few people in there, but it was, to those people, it was a lifeline. And I understand that. And it was torturous when we had to tell the parents. It was like one of the worst things I've ever had to do is to tell my friends that I don't have somebody to watch their kids for them. And so since then, normally that would have been the director's job to fill in that position. But our director left, our longtime director left. So we did have a hard time filling that position between her leaving and COVID and nobody wanting to go out and everybody's scared and blah, blah, blah. So that's why we were having trouble finding one. In the past, we didn't really have trouble finding a director to fit those hours. And we were actually thinking of giving them some more hours to entice them and to help it out, and give them more power and more direct, let them actually direct the program, take a little bit off the Park and Rec director themselves. I just want to reiterate that Park and Rec already has 2 part-timers. They have 2 part-time aides right now, besides their other people that they use. All these people were just hired with no protocols, no job, they have job descriptions, most of them. This full-timer does not have a job description ready yet, so what you said is they're not prepared for this, they're not ready for this. I don't really think it's needed as someone who's been on Park or was on Park and Rec for many years.
Did you have anything new you wish to share, Lynn? I think you shared a lot of this
Well,
already.
I'd like to say with what Jean said, Park and Rec was already working with other towns, so that's not new. We were already working with Club Getaway, that wasn't new, that was supposed to happen the year before. And we were already doing recreational is the word, activities at the senior center, not food service. So there's a lot of time that this director is using for things that are not in his job description. And if the commission would actually have oversight and watch what he's doing and pay attention to the hours, you would see that there is not a need for one. It's time to get the volunteers back in there and go after the parents. We have a lot of parents. Parents have, for many years, have worked full-time, both parents. They've always done it. There's always parents to coach, and there still are parents to coach. The word just needs to get out more.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, anyone else at home? Last chance. Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all for coming and speaking.